Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Arsenault. I work in the Office of Admission at Grinnell College, and I am delighted to welcome you this afternoon, this evening, this morning, wherever you are coming from, to our first alumni panel that features 5 amazingly talented, extraordinarily awesome citizens of the world. We're so happy to have them here with us. I am joined today by my colleague, Grace. I will let her introduce herself in a moment. We are going to hear from each of the alums, and then we will save the last 20 or 25 minutes of today's panel for your questions. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the students that have chosen to join us today and congratulate them on their admission to Grinnell. Some of the students in the room I know have already deposited and have committed. We are thrilled. Others are still in the process of deciding. Wherever you are at this point in your college search, know that we're just happy you've chosen to spend a little over half hour with us today and to hear more about what your life could be like on campus, but also what type of path you can forge once you leave Grinnell. And I don't want to waste any more time. I want to get right to the stories and the journeys of these students, former students. But first, I'd like to pass it to my colleague, Grace.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Grace Lloyd. I work in the Office of Admission as a Senior Assistant Director of Admission, and it's really great to have you all joining us, and it's also great to have some lovely alums that will be telling their stories, as Rachel said. I just really quickly wanted to address, if you have any questions at any point during this panel, please use the Q&A feature. It's at the bottom of your screen, and if you click that, you can type a question. If you want it to be an anonymous question, that's an option. And then either myself or my colleague Rachel will be answering by typing, or maybe our alums will actually answer it out loud during the Q&A section of this panel. So that's my quick note, and I will pass it to Strax to let him introduce himself to you all. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Rachel, and hello, everyone. My name is Strax. I am a class of 2017, so graduated 4 years ago. I'm originally from Belgrade, Serbia. I came to Grinnell in 2013 and decided to pursue dual degree or double major in political science and German. And I have since went on to pursue a graduate degree at Georgetown, and I've been working in New York since then, since 2019, and graduating from School of Foreign Service at Georgetown. So those are a few words from me.
Hello, everybody. Congratulations on your admission to Grinnell. My name is Michael Owusu. I graduated in 2017. I originally grew up in Ames, Iowa. So that's just about an hour away from Grinnell College, though my family is originally from Ghana. Let's see, I majored in computer science, though I studied a bunch of different things, which we can kind of get into. After I graduated from college in 2017, I moved to Dallas to start work as a project manager at Microsoft. Spent about a year there before moving to Chicago, where I currently am still a project manager with Microsoft. Fun fact is I like to play music. Excited to talk to you all today.
Hi, everybody. I'm Samantha. Again, congratulations on your acceptance to Grinnell. I am from Los Angeles, California. Originally, I too am class of 2017. I majored in psychology at Grinnell and concentrated in neuroscience. I've since made my way on a winding path here to Boston, Massachusetts. Happy to answer any questions along my Grinnell journey. I guess I'll end with a fun fact. I have a parasitic wasp named after me, and actually it's connected to Grinnell because I had a summer internship at the Smithsonian after my first year of college, and my supervisor at the end of my time there decided to call a species after my name. So Ahlava samanthae is named after me.
Again, congratulations a lot on your admission to Grinnell. I am Amul. I am originally from Kathmandu, Nepal. I was part of Grinnell's class of 2015, and I was an independent major at Grinnell in post-colonial studies. So I'll talk a little bit more later about how you go about building your own major as well. And since graduation, I've found my way to the UK, where I've done my master's And now I'm in my PhD, where I'm doing my PhD in comparative literature at the University of Warwick. So nice to meet you all. Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Gargi. Congratulations on your admission to Grinnell. I was class of 2017. I'm from the suburbs of Chicago, Naperville, if you've heard of it. I studied economics at Grinnell, and since graduation in 2017, I've been in equity derivative structuring at Goldman Sachs. My fun fact, I guess, is I've gotten really into oranges, eat a lot of oranges recently. So yeah.
Don't sell yourself short. You enjoy making orange juice now, fresh squeeze?
Yes, really into orange juice. Yep.
Well, at this point, we're going to turn things back over to Strax so he can give you a little bit more detail on his journey. And then each of the alums will take a few minutes to talk about their journeys. And then we'll get right down to business with Q&A. So we'll all turn our video off for now, just so the spotlight can be on the alum that's presenting, and I'll share my screen.
Hello, everyone, again. So as I mentioned, I came to Grinnell in 2013, and over the course of 4 years that I've spent in or associated with Grinnell, I focused on political science in German, got majors there, 2 majors, and then concentrated in European studies. So I focused on transatlantic relations, relationship between the European Union and United States academically. In terms of extracurricular activities, I want to highlight Grinnell is very unique. Not only it's a small liberal arts school, but especially is proud for inspiring students and supporting students to do whatever they would want and get the right guidance for that in terms of their professional path, which was for me multiple summer internships that I did in the permanent mission of Serbia to the United Nations here in New York, where I would end up 6-7 years later in Securities and Exchange Commission in Washington, D.C., and a few other places in the Balkans back home. And then another, apart from professional, there's an extra layer of academic support, if you will, which would be off-campus study. We don't call it studying abroad because for me, for example, or Amul, we're already studying abroad, so it would be abroad, I guess. But I spent a full year in Germany studying, again, focusing on German literature, but also political science on large universities, which was a drastic change coming from a small liberal arts school in Iowa to, say, a school in Berlin that has 25,000-30,000 students. So that's also an option that a lot of our students pursue. And those were 2 of my primary foci, I guess, academically and professionally. So I'll stop there, and then obviously happy to answer any questions. I'll end with my current employer, which is the Eurasia Group, geopolitical risk consulting firm here in New York, where I support the principal and the founder of the firm on his briefings to clients across the world. Thanks, and I guess back to Rach.
We'll hand things over to Michael.
Cool. Thank you, Rachel. So yeah, I guess I can start a little bit with my Grinnell journey. So, I'm the youngest of 4 brothers, my next oldest brother being 6 years older. So I've gone on so many college trips, my dad being in academia as well. I really got a lot of preparation, and I'd always been aware of the liberal arts education, especially having had that contrast of having brothers who'd gone to large universities and having, a brother who went to Williams. And I really kind of saw that the experience and the well-roundedness that he had, so I was glad that at the age of, 17, 18, that I was able to really kind of seek that experience out for myself and ultimately choose to go with the small liberal arts education. So I toured Grinnell probably 3 times as a growing person before I actually went on my own tour. I definitely did want to get out of Iowa, having grown up there, but the school just really had a charm to me, and so ultimately that's where I decided to go. And the rest is history. I really did enjoy that, and so that's kind of how I made the step into Grinnell. While I was there, I studied a lot of different things. Like I mentioned, I did major in computer science, but my initial advisor had really encouraged me to be interdisciplinary. So, I studied Japanese intensely for 3 years. I took a lot of art classes, whether that was, drawing or Roman art and archaeology. Studied a lot of music. I probably spent as much time on music as I did on my actual major. Jazz, extracurricularly, had the opportunity to research, which, incorporated art and computer science as well. And that ultimately, led me to some of my internship experiences starting after my second year. So I had the opportunity to be a software developer in the summers working in healthcare. Talking a little bit about student life, the biggest extracurricular was this group called Free Sound, which I believe is still up in action. So if there's any musicians out there, I definitely can field questions on that. That was definitely where I was spending a lot of my time. Free Sound was basically a community and a resource in the sense that created a space for students to, have places to play different instruments, to have equipment if they ever wanted to put on an event, whether that was a musical performance or whether that was, needing speakers for some sort of event. So that was a group that I got to work with a lot during college. In addition to that, I did have some experience in student government, which kind of was born out of my experience with working with student groups. Eventually, I found out that I had, a knack for coordinating. So I got the opportunity to be the administrative coordinator as part of our student government cabinet. And that actually was a really impactful opportunity, which led into me becoming a project manager, because even though I did study computer science, I realized that I love to be a coordinator. And that was really kind of brought to the light in my Grinnell College experience. In addition to that, there were so many opportunities for student employment, from working in the dining hall, as many of us have done in our first time there, to being a technology consultant. So getting to work in the AV center, getting to, help classes that are, working with projectors and cameras and things like that, helping students who have had broken computers in their midterm papers on there and, they need their computer fixed. So that was a really fulfilling job. And in addition to that, I think one of the best parts of Grinnell was the friends that I had the opportunity to make, and kind of getting to not only have my own journey, but vicariously enjoy the journeys of my friends, who to this day are some of the closest people I know. There's a hall in North Campus in Grinnell called Norris Hall, and it's oftentimes a place where a lot of first years get placed, and that's where I lived my first year. And I can literally still remember everybody down that hall, and some of my closest friends, some people that I've lived with recently in Chicago, were really born out of that relationship that I formed there in Norris Hall. So I think the sort of folks that you meet at Grinnell College, the sort of people you form relationships with, has been one of the things that stuck with me the most. It's a little bit about the academics, my Grinnell journey, and a bit about student life. So if there's anything there that you guys have questions about, let me know. I'd love to talk more about it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Hi again, everybody. I'm Samantha. So my Grinnell journey, I grew up in a big urban city in Los Angeles, and I knew that I wanted difference for 4 years, and going to Iowa was certainly different. I was drawn to Grinnell originally, and what continued to sort of pull me throughout my journey there, I was drawn to the open curriculum and small classes. So while I majored in a hard science and psychology, I had the flexibility to take religious studies classes, arts. I'm a ceramicist, so I had the opportunity to also dive deeply into ceramics. I was also drawn to the strong sciences and opportunity for undergraduate research. So psychology at Grinnell is taught as a lab-based discipline. So I had the opportunity to be involved in experiments in every class I took. So we have a local preschool right off campus, and we did some child observation of child play styles, those sorts of things. The college also provided money for me to present my own research at conferences. And often I was the only undergraduate attendee amidst a sea of graduate students. So Grinnell really put their money where their mouth was in terms of providing me with an undergraduate research experience that I have carried forth since graduation. I also worked as a paid research assistant throughout the year for one of my psychology professors. Another reason why I was drawn to Grinnell was the emphasis on global engagement. So I studied abroad in Copenhagen, Denmark. I did a course on European clinical psychology, and that sparked a love of international travel that has also just carried forth in my life. Another reason why I just found a home at Grinnell was the endowments for supporting students. So I received financial support for every internship during every summer at Grinnell. So I mentioned the Smithsonian internship in Washington, DC. I also did a psychology research position at Harvard one summer, and then at Boston Medical Center, which is where I'm also currently employed. All in big, expensive cities, and I could not have taken up those internship opportunities without Grinnell's support. And then I think, above all else, my experience at Grinnell, like Grinnellians are passionate people, they're lifelong learners. Everyone was involved and engaged and excited about things. It might be different than what you're excited about, but I loved that sort of environment where everybody was passionate about something. While on campus, I was a sexual assault advocate. I supported students through their own experiences of sexual assault and the Title IX process. I was a paid research assistant, as I mentioned. I started peer support groups for students, just general anxiety and depression and stress that we were all facing. I worked at the Grinnell in Prison program. I tutored incarcerated juveniles in Iowa in math and English. And then I worked at the admissions office. I interviewed prospective students as a senior interviewer. And finally, I lived at Food House, which is one of our communal living situations at Grinnell, where I lived with 12 other students. And I was in charge one night a week of cooking a meal for over 20 people. So I've gotten really good at cooking meals for large groups. After graduation, I went to Malaysia for a Fulbright research grant looking at HIV and drug addiction, co-abuse among people in Malaysia, and then followed that back to Boston Medical Center, where I had an internship during college. This photo on this slide is me in front of the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, which is where I will be going in the fall for my master's in public health. So yeah, that's kind of my journey. Happy to answer any questions you guys all have about anything that I've mentioned.
Yeah, hi there. So I'm Amul. I was part of the class of 2015 at Grinnell, and so my journey at Grinnell was also quite unique in its own way, as we've heard from Strax and Samantha and Michael as well. And in my case, I created my own major whereby I combined a bunch of coursework from a variety of different departments. In my case, it was English, political science, and history. And I actually created my own major, which was post-colonial studies, which combined the three departments to create my own coursework to that. So if anyone has questions later on, I'd be happy to answer about that in terms of creating your own major as well. But I think the open curriculum was really what drew me to Grinnell as well, as a couple of others have talked about. And that really helped me figure out the kind of coursework I really wanted to pursue further as well. And yeah, while I was at Grinnell, I guess a couple of things I really dove into. I guess the biggest thing was really the ISO, which is the International Student Organization, which organizes events for a variety of different international events, which are be it like Holi, Diwali, or we had an annual food bazaar, which is basically making food from a variety of different places, and you just create different dishes, and it's just a really good time. And so the ISO was really a big part of my experience at Grinnell. And then beyond that, the off-campus study was also a big part of it. I studied abroad in London, and that actually helped my post-Grinnell career as well, because since I've graduated, I've completed my master's at SOAS, the University of London, and then I'm currently now doing my PhD at the University of Warwick, also in the UK. So I think my study abroad really helped me familiarize myself with the UK, which is something that I'm now, ever since Grinnell, I've found myself back here in the UK, and I'm speaking from the UK now as well. So I think Grinnell really helped me figure out avenues of postgraduate careers that went beyond the US as well, because as an international student, for me, really, I wasn't bound to stay in the US or go back to Nepal, but like I was open to anything. And I think my off-campus study experience in the UK really helped me with that. So yeah, and I think the open curriculum really helped me, because I did my master's in South Asian studies, and now I'm doing my PhD in English and comparative literature. So I think the liberal arts education and the open curriculum at Grinnell really helped me to be able to jump from discipline to discipline in a way that perhaps in other places where you're kind of bound to a discipline or filling distribution requirements is not so much of an issue at Grinnell, where I feel confident enough to jump from one place to the other. And so, yeah, I think I have a lot to thank to Grinnell for the way my postgraduate career has gone as well. Yeah, and happy to answer any questions after that. Yeah, thanks.
Hey guys, so my Grinnell journey, I went to a really big high school. It was 4,000 people total with like 1,000 per year. And I knew I was not happy. So I was looking for something smaller that was within driving distance of my parents, because it was my first time living away from home and I'm not as courageous as Strax or Amul to go, half the world over. So I was also attracted to the open curriculum, like others have mentioned, because I didn't really know what I wanted to study. So when I first went to Grinnell, I declared a chemistry major, and I started doing a lot of chem classes. Simultaneously, I also got involved in the student government. My second year, I became assistant treasurer of the student government and realized I kind of liked finance and econ. So I switched my major. No, actually, so then I started applying for finance and econ internships. And I'm happy to talk about how Grinnell helped me in that process. I ended up getting an internship at Goldman Sachs in their securities division. So I went to Goldman in Salt Lake City actually for the summer, really liked it, came back, changed my major to economics. And at this point I was treasurer of the student government, so kind of continued on that pathway, realized I really liked it, continued, and then post-grad, I have been at Goldman since graduation. Other things that I did when I was at Grinnell was I studied Chinese for several years. I did a lot of the environmental studies concentration, though I didn't finish it. And this is where I think, like Amol mentioned, not having so many strict core curriculum requirements really helped, because I could bounce around. I, aside from my work in the student government, was a bartender at one of the bars in town, which was great because I just really enjoyed that. I was a tour guide at admissions and the Saturday morning receptionist. Yeah, and after graduating, like I said, I've been in equity derivative structuring, and then in my free time, I'm learning chess, and I'm a volunteer researcher for Justice Democrats, which is a progressive PAC that nominates and helps support progressive candidates for the House of Representatives. Happy to answer any questions about any of that. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Gargi. Well, we appreciate the intros from each of you and a bit about your Grinnell stories and how you ended up here. The chat is blowing up in an awesome way. My colleague Grace is kind of curating things. We've gotten a few questions that relate to one another. So Grace, is there a question that comes to mind right off the bat that we should start with?
Yeah, one question that has been asked in a few different ways is how Grinnell's alumni network and Careers Life and Service Office helped prepare you for what you're doing now and just postgraduate life, whether that's graduate school or a job. And so while obviously you don't all need to answer that question, if a few of you could take that and talk a little bit about your relationship with the CLS and the alumni network, that would be great.
I would love to hop on this one. The alumni network is super warm and welcoming. I wrote this down in kind of notes to prepare for this today, you guys, because alums have helped me every step along the way. I mentioned that I moved to Malaysia after graduation and tapped into the Grinnell network in Malaysia, both people who have resettled into the Southeast Asian region, but also folks who were from there and found their way to Grinnell. I have met up with Grinnell alums here in Boston. All have been available for both networking opportunities, but also just, I think Grinnellians are relatively similar people in our quirky ways. And so I found that regardless of where I am in the world, there is a Grinnellian, and they are so warm and welcoming to me every step along the way. I'll let someone else talk about the CLS.
Yeah, the CLS helped me a lot when I was going through the Goldman interview process. I had to interview 5 times to get my internship at Goldman, and I went through 2 practice. So first of all, I heard about the internship through the economics department. I think they sent out like a department-wide email just being like, hey, they're hiring, like, do you want to apply? And then when I did, I went to the CLS to have them look over my resume, help me draft my cover letter. I also did a practice interview with them, which is where they film you while asking interview questions. It is a terrifying experience, but I think probably crucial to me getting the internship. So I do think they're very supportive. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions off the back of that.
I can actually jump in a little bit on that too. I did take a course called Learning from Alumni that I believe was a collaboration between academic services and the CS department. So it was once a week. It was very casual, maybe an hour or 2, and we'd have an alum come and present about, this is a potential path, kind of like what's going on here. But having that in the context of while you're actually taking courses was really good. And so I got to see the diversity of people who were, English majors who ended up, studying or working in the computer science field, or people who studied computer science and ended up doing not that at all. And seeing kind of the steps into their journey and seeing some of the things that kind of were giving them anxiety and things that, like it's going to get better, or, this is what really prepared me and stuff like that. And so just having that facilitation of constant alumni interaction in a course was really kind of beneficial as I was going through and making my own path.
Before we snag another question, these alums are amazing, but they're not the only amazing Grinnellians. Internship funding is available to all students. And so I just want people to know that after your first year, you can apply for summer internship funding and every year to come. And it's absolutely amazing. The CLS has about $400,000. We keep saying the CLS, the Center for Careers, Life and Service, to allocate to students who find underpaid or unpaid internships. And not every student is going to get the same stipend because some students are working from home and commuting to an internship locally. Other students are moving to DC and rent is higher there, and food costs and transportation they need to budget. So your stipend can vary, but I don't want anyone who's out there thinking that internships just happened because these are special, extraordinary humans. They are, but it's really available across disciplines, departments, and class years. And as Samantha mentioned, she received funding each summer during her time at Grinnell. So what's another question, Grace?
Yeah, another question that we've been getting is specifically about just Grinnell. Like, what are the good and bad sides of the location, being in a small town and also being at a small school? Like, how did the size and the location play into your experience as a Grinnell College student?
Yeah, I can start with that one. I guess for me, it was quite a change. There's no denying it, because I was coming from across the world, right? I was coming all the way from Nepal. And so in a way, I didn't even know really what to expect. But and then when I came there, it was, quite a ways from any big kind of metropolis or anything. But that being said, I would be hard pressed to find any weekend in my 4 years there where I was really bored, because there's so much going on campus, just even in my latter years going off campus, where there's just things going on all the time. Be it having the concerts committee bringing over amazing musicians playing on campus, or whether it is all kinds of really events going on campus. It's despite the fact that you feel like you are perhaps removed from a large city, you never really feel it, because it keeps you occupied in a way that you never feel like you're missing it. I mean, the biggest kind of compliment I can play it is that despite being so far from bigger cities, I like probably in my 4 years, I can count on one hand the amount of weekends I went away. I was mostly on campus because I never wanted to spend a weekend away from campus, really. So there is a lot going on every weekend, all weekend. So there, I guess that was my experience, really. So yeah.
And then spent a summer in Grinnell, so I think you liked it.
I did. Yeah. Very much so. Yeah, exactly.
And we have so many international students who are tuning in right now who've been admitted or have already committed to Grinnell. And I just want the international students in the room to know that we have a pretty spectacular program run through the Office of International and Student Affairs, where we pair students that are from, non-domestic locations with friends and families in the community. So they have someone to lean on who's unaffiliated with a college, more or less. So it's the Friends of International Student Program. I just wanted to point that out. Did you have a family in town, Amul?
I didn't, but it was just like it just seems like a really good system in place where you can sign up exactly like Rachel says. You sign up with the family, you go over for dinner. It's like a home away from home, and it is really just something that if you're having because especially in your first year when you're away from home and you feel a little homesick at times, perhaps it's just something to fall back on, really. Yeah.
Let me just jump in here. Grace and I were just I asked her if I could jump in here. It's a perfect timing, Rachel. Great segue, because this is one of my favorite Grinnell stories that I tell now at work and just random conversations. The connection that I have with my host parents to this day is phenomenal. I was matched with a family just outside of Grinnell. And we, like Amul said, it's designed as maybe a few times a semester, once a month kind of interaction, especially for US-based holidays like Thanksgiving, Memorial Day, Labor Day, for example, or some specific events that college organizes to bring host families on campus and for us to interact, etc. But we kind of hit it off and would see each other once a week. To this day, we're in touch. They came to Serbia, 5 of them, so host mom, host dad, and 3 sons. When my folks were about to come for graduation, and my brother, they stayed at their home. On June 3rd, my oldest host brother, Daniel, is getting married, so I'll be going there for a wedding as well. So those kind of really not family away from, like home away from home, but truly an extended family by this point. So for all international students out there, it's a terrific, beautiful program that the school is running.
Yeah, I can say I have 2, like I'm a host parent of 2 host students, and it's just absolutely wonderful. And so I love that program, and I think it's a really great way to connect students with people in the community, also, other staff and faculty members, but even just people that have nothing to do with the college, which is really nice too. So
we have a lot of students that are interested in computer science. That is the most popular major at present at Grinnell, followed by political science and economics, bio and biochemistry are up there as well. We have close to 30 majors though. So if the 5 I just listed aren't on your radar, that is absolutely okay. But Michael, would you mind talking a little bit about the department? How early did you declare? And I think the question was really about, how was that department helpful in your future career choice and the relationships you had with the professors? Do you feel like you could have still gotten your job had you not majored in, let's say, computer science?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to hear that computer science is, becoming popular. I know it was on that uptick when I was there, and it is, it's good to see. So yeah, it's been a fantastic experience with the computer science department. I think one of the things that I really appreciated about it was the encouragement to be interdisciplinary. So it was not like I was taking, 4 CS courses per semester for my 4 years. It was very much, 1 to 2, and then kind of finding things to really well round it out, which has been really impactful in my career currently. One of the feedback I get, I've had recruiters search LinkedIn for, Grinnell College, and computer science or like technology, because the people who are coming out of our school are, very technically skilled, but also really well-rounded. For example, Grinnellians tend to be really good writers, and that's something that has been really kind of effective. So I'd say that interdisciplinary kind of push was one of the things that was really effective for me. The major definitely was helpful, but I will say that there are, other degrees that can kind of help funnel that way. For Grinnell, I think math is a pretty common one, which you see in technical spaces, but kind of given the size of the college, if you are trying to get into a career as, a developer, for example, computer science is really helpful. The faculty there, I cannot say enough good things about the relationships I've had there. I was actually a part of the SEPC for the CS department, and so the SEPC is the Student Educational Policy Committee, and basically we were a group of like 5, and there was one, I think, for every major, and most concentrations, if not all. And basically it's kind of a student group that helps and is kind of the voice of students in that major, to work with the professors there. So we were doing things like interviewing new potential faculty that were wanting to apply there, and we were so in that process. The way that I was able to work with the various heads of department to really interview someone who's coming in, sit in on one of their lectures and say, hey, this person's a good fit for X, Y, and Z reasons, or we're not quite so sure about this. I mean, it was really hand in hand, professors saying, hey, what do you think about this? And seeing that really pan out. I mean, I was able to go to a lecture, do interviews with a potential faculty member, and then take a course from them the next year. I don't know how to that's just such a good example for me. And so that just goes to highlight sort of the connection you can have with the professors. I think from the actual education standpoint, it's you're not going to learn some of the specifics that you might in other places, but you're going to, because of, I think, the number of classes that are able to be offered. But I think that the benefit to that is it's so problem solving driven. So you might not learn a specific Java library in a class of 300 students, but you're going to be able to learn about, the paradigm of, object-oriented development, and you're going to learn how that applies to any sort of technology space. And so I think the fact that I was able to learn how to problem solve, and now in my career, I'm able to put that into practice across, a bunch of different spaces, as opposed to learning one obscure technology piece that you might learn at, say, Iowa State University, but you don't have that problem solving foundation, has been so good for me. I don't really care what technology piece I'm going to dive into, what project I'm going to dive into, because I'm very confident in the problem solving foundation that I've gained in Grinnell College. And I think that has been driven so strongly by working with the professors and being able to go to office hours, being able to say, hey, I'm going to grab my lunch and come see you, and we're going to work on this problem until it's done, Yeah, it's the CS faculty in particular, and I think I could say this for a lot of the faculty, but speaking from my own experience, I mean, they are so driven by the students, to the point where, it's like, hey, Sam, let's not meet today, let's pick this up later. You give me so much time this week. Sam was, I think, still currently the CS head, but I mean, I can't say enough about the connection there and the investment in the students and kind of the problem solving and the holistic sort of skills that you get that are going to be applicable to so many domains there. So I don't know. I think the CS department is strong and has created students and eventual people outside of academics who are really competitive and sought after.
Oh, that was great. We have a couple of questions for Samantha that I also think other people can, of course, chime in on too. But the first one is, can you talk a little bit about the experience that you had with the roles that you volunteered for, and specifically about campus safety and campus life, and just especially given your involvement when you were a student?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think I forgot to mention in my intro too, I also worked for the Campus Safety and Security Office. I was a dispatcher for several years, so sort of got all different sides of safety. I felt very safe on campus. I think my initiatives while I was a student there were to provide a really inclusive and supportive community there, which already existed, but I wanted to bolster that during my time there. So as an advocate, we have a 24/7 hotline that any student can call on campus. Often we got calls that weren't necessarily related to sexual assault, but might have been just a student struggling. And so there was always this kind of 24/7 resource available. The peer support groups I mentioned, open to anyone of all class years. My experience at Grinnell was one where there were always people there to listen and to help you out. I think just fundamentally safety wise, I'm not sure if they still do this because it's been a few years, but if you ever feel unsafe at any times, you could call safety and security and they would, no questions asked, send out sort of a car to pick you up from wherever you were and take you back to your place. So I think foundationally felt safe, but I think building off of that and building into students' mental health and stress and anxiety, I definitely felt like there were resources available to support students, often peer support. I think I also got a question about neuroscience that I'm happy to chime in about. So neuroscience is one of these interdisciplinary concentrations at Grinnell. So it brought together folks in the humanities and the hard sciences, biology, psychology, anthropology. You all take this Foundations of Neuroscience course where we did sort of standard fare, getting the basics of neuroscience. That has a lab component. So the experiment I remember doing was like action potential propagation and things like that. And I remember that because after I finished that course, I was asked back by the professor to be a student teacher, which is, I think, normally a position at other institutions reserved for graduate students. But now, as I applied to graduate schools, I could say I was sort of a student teacher myself. I think like most concentrations, neuroscience culminated in a senior seminar that we all took. And that the main project in that is writing an actual NIH grant application, which is what I do in my current job. So I, as an undergraduate, had this experience of putting together what a real scientific research application looks like, and we could write it on anything. So I got really into drug addiction research while I was at Grinnell, both through summer internships and on campus. And so I wrote a proposal for a neuroscience intervention for drug addiction among young adults, which funnily enough is what I do for work now. So neuroscience, I would say, is, yeah, very interdisciplinary. Folks from all over the school do it. Yeah.
We have time for one more question. We know we're technically at time, but we just have so many great questions. So we're gonna do one more that I think will be a really fun one for each of you to answer. Gargi, I'd love if you could start us off with this, because I know you had a lot of things that you were balancing. But how difficult is it to balance academics, research, extracurriculars, your postgraduate, just like all these different things as a student? Like, how do you find that work-life balance? If you're involved in a sport or anything like that, how do you balance that, or music, etc.? And stay okay while you're a student at Grinnell?
Yeah, that's a good question. I personally have always struggled with work-life balance during Grinnell and after Grinnell. It is a rigorous school, but I think one of the good parts of the small class sizes are that you know your professors and your professors know you. So it's easy to keep an open dialogue with them on what else is going on in your life to make sure that you're not overwhelmed by one class in particular. Or, if you have 3 exams on the same day, which sometimes happens. I think it was good practice for my life right now, because in hindsight, I think college is probably when you're most free, like when you have the most free time, at least in my current role, I'm working, 8 to 8. So like, it's harder to keep, in college, you have time between classes, you have time before classes, after classes, you have the weekends. And I think Grinnell does a good job of throwing enough at you that you're able to learn what it's like to be busy, which is good practice for post-grad. I did used to, I worked a lot of jobs when I was at Grinnell just because I liked being all over the place. And I think, I don't know where I'm going with this. I will say I was very busy at Grinnell, like I'm sure everyone was, but you just got to be able to talk to your professors. I think studying in groups helped because that is a good way to make sure you stay on track and will do work as efficiently as possible.
Well, I mean, I guess there is also, I do think that there is a really special bond that is formed between not just your peers, but also with the staff there. I mean, like we've talked about, it is a small, tight-knit community. And like I mentioned before, I formed my own major as well. And so I got to be quite close with my professors as well. And so the kind of mentoring role that your professors can play can really be quite influential, really. I mean, I'm 6 years out, more so than any of the other alums on this panel, and I'm still in touch with both of my advisors from Grinnell, because I still value what they have to say about, and like the advice they have to give me about the path I'm pursuing. So I love to keep them in check and like just be in touch with them, because I'm planning to go into academia as well, and they are and obviously Grinnell's faculty have just got immense amounts of experience, so it's always good to check in on them. So I think having that relationship with the professors also helps you figure out the kind of future you want to forge for yourself in a way. And I think that sometimes being in a small school, you almost take that for granted because everyone has a close relationship with their professors. But then I talk with some of my high school students, like my high school friends who went to larger universities, who I find out didn't really, like, their professors barely even knew them. And like, I just realized at that point how lucky we really were to know our professors as closely as we did know them. So yeah, I think that's quite key as well. Yeah.
I want to second that. I just applied to graduate school for this coming fall. And rather than feeling any kind of like, oh my God, are my undergraduate professors going to remember me enough to write a letter on my behalf, I had kept up this correspondence with them because they felt so invested in me, both as a student, but just in getting to know me. I remember both my psychology advisor and neuroscience advisor had office hours every week. Their door was always open. Their email was always open. If I was struggling at all, I felt like I could just go in there without an agenda and they would help me make heads or tails of whatever I was doing. And I think even outside of the departments I majored in, I found that to be the case. I decided to challenge myself and take a calculus class while I was at Grinnell, and I really, really struggled in it. And I was in the professor's office every week, sometimes multiple times a week, and rather than feeling like I was tiring her out, it was what was expected for me to perform. So just that investment in me as a person, I think is really special about Grinnell.
Well, this panel could go much longer. I want to be mindful of the participants in the room and also our alumni who have given their time on a Saturday, which is just absolutely, we're so grateful. I did want to let everyone know that if you need to leave, you want to leave, you are welcome to exit. Grace and I were thinking we kind of wrap up with you could maybe share one question that popped in the chat that I liked, what are some quintessential features of Grinnell? What do you have to be a great Grinnellian, or some characteristics of Grinnell students? And maybe in conjunction with that, do you have any advice for your first year self? So the students in the room that haven't made their decision or what do you recommend? I saw in the chat that Strax says he would have taken advantage of more intramural sports. It could be light, it could be heavy, but any parting words you have, I think students and families would love to hear. We don't need to go in any particular order, but we'll see who wants to go first.
I can actually start there. So I think with the campus, the size of Grinnell College, it's not a matter of if you will engage, it's how you will engage. And so I think that is one of the things that I really associate with Grinnell. It's like, what's this person's story, right? And you do kind of, if you don't know someone by name, you probably can recognize them by the way that they walk. It's just, that's the way it gets by the end of the year. There's just that familiarity there. And it's, there's been even relationships you make on your last week on campus, like, oh wow, like I can't believe we never crossed paths, but like there's such an affinity here, and it's just there's that level of comfort. I think is what I associate most strongly with some of my memories in Grinnell. Um, I'm not gonna say I didn't dive in right away, but I think if I could go back, I was like, oh, I wish I would have, figured out my niches that were so important to me sooner. Like I really loved music, and I think that I didn't really come into my full confidence until maybe around my second year. And I'm like, oh, there was a year and a half there that if I had spent that time knowing, that I wanted to, do as big of a performance as I could, or whatever, I could have got that time back. And it's not really regrets, but I would say the advice to myself would be to engage. You don't really, even before college or after college, and especially with a place like Grinnell that has so many resources, you can try on so many hats. So start right away, try on the different hats, see which ones you like, and see sort of how far you can take something along that 4-year path with all the sort of student, faculty, and otherwise support that you have. There's nothing really like it.
I'll just jump in as I'll have to leave, unfortunately, but I'll second everything that Michael said. One thing that that goes perhaps, and I know parents are listening, so that goes kind of under the radar. Just keep your, and this I'm talking to students, but keep your folks in mind, and keep them updated on how's life in Grinnell or wherever you end up on campus or in college. But just stay in touch and tell them how you're doing, and that you're eating healthy food in dining hall, and that you are getting that 8 hours sleep, and even if you're not, and it's you're about to embark. Some students might have already been to boarding schools and everything, but this is a major life event for the entire family, not only you, especially if the family is making a financial contribution to make sure that you are well settled on campus and supported. That's the least that they deserve, in my opinion. So keep them in mind. And thank you everyone. Thanks for the Office of Admission for organizing this. Thanks a lot.
Bye, Strax. Thank you.
Take care.
I think I mentioned this at the beginning of today's session, but just sort of the passion that Grinnell students had. I think the story I've told since graduation, I lived and worked at Food House, this communal living space on campus, and we would host these campus-wide dinners where anyone could come to our common table and break bread with us and engage in conversation with us over dinner. And I have so many fond memories during my time at Grinnell of just sitting around a table with people who, I had seen around campus because it's a small campus, so you tend to recognize faces, but it was just sort of this equalizing place where anyone could drop in and find community. And I think that was so special that we just sort of had this open door policy that anyone could come and hang out. If I could do Grinnell over again, I am a person with many interests, so I took a wide variety of classes, but I would have taken a language. Languages at Grinnell are taught really immersively, and I wish I had taken advantage of that, especially as I pivot more into international development and public health work. Knowing French would really be helpful, and instead I'm kind of doing that post-grad, but building that into my Grinnell education, I really would have taken advantage of that.
When you were in Malaysia, was one of your kind of introductions to the country to take the language through an orientation?
Yeah, I took Bahasa Malaysia from the University of Malaya, which is the university I was affiliated with for my Fulbright, and actually with a Grinnell alum who I would meet up with dinner, and she and I would talk in Bahasa. Bahasa Malaysia is a phonetic language, so you can sort of sound it out when you look at a sign. You can kind of make fun of yourself by trying to pronounce words, but this alum and I would meet up for dinner, and she really helped me with that language acquisition process when I was there. Yeah.
Grinnellians are truly everywhere.
They
and are not
everywhere.
Shy to lend a hand. It sometimes gives me goosebumps. So thank you, Samantha. Anything else?
I can go next. The one thing that I would say if I was going to do Grinnell over again is to make sure, check in with yourself to make sure that you're physically and mentally doing well. I think it's easy to get caught up because I think people have mentioned this, but the friends you'll make at Grinnell are the friends you're going to have for the rest of your life. And that is true. My best friends are all Grinnellians, I think, right now. So it's easy to get kind of caught up in the environment. So just make sure that you're staying healthy. And I will say, Samantha, I used to go to Food House a lot, and those were probably some of the healthiest meals I had. Great experience. Go to Food House if you can.
Go to Food House.
Yeah.
Post-pandemic, maybe, or we'll figure out that. We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Thank you for your honesty, Gargi. That was beautiful. Well,
I also have to drop because I have a
That's
Zoom
okay.
wedding, but bye
Oh my
guys. Thanks for having me.
all right. Well, Grace, do you have anything you want to end with? I'm just very, very happy with everyone who has chosen to spend an hour with us. And thank you to the alums who are still here. We appreciate it. We hope that the students and families will continue to think about Grinnell before they have to make a decision. We are available via email, via any virtual platform you wish, likely. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us at admission@grinnell.edu, and we will direct you to the appropriate individual, which might be your territory manager. And we hope to connect with all of you again.